Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, a nation in mourning. People gathered in Minneapolis to honor the victims of the Catholic school shooting. Meanwhile, police released new details about the 23-year-old suspect and the evidence he left behind. Christina Corona brings us the latest. The White House responds to the tragedy, with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt defending the power of prayer. Mari Otsu has more on that, plus new numbers on the D.C. crime crackdowns, a warning for Chicago, and touting jobs for American workers. The White House says a new CDC director is coming soon, but fired director Susan Menares is pushing back through her attorneys against her termination. Jason Blair with that update. The Department of Homeland Security asks a military base near Chicago to assist with immigration enforcement operations. Meanwhile, in Florida, a judge orders federal and state officials to close down a new detention facility for illegal immigrants. Arlene Richards reports. Russia strikes Kyiv overnight and damages the EU delegation's headquarters. But Ukraine says it's ready to mass produce a missile that could hit back at Moscow and beyond. Luis Martinez has the war update. France, Germany, and the UK begin the process of applying crippling sanctions against Iran. Iran is accused of not cooperating with inspections of its nuclear facilities. Jason Perry breaks it down.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Police are releasing new details and new evidence about the suspect accused of opening fire outside a Catholic school in Minneapolis Wednesday, killing 2 children and injuring 18 others. NTD's Christina Corona has the latest on the tragedy.
A candlelight vigil was held in Lyndhurst Park in Minneapolis Wednesday to honor the victims of the Catholic school shooting. Officials provided an update on the tragedy on Thursday.
At this time, we have identified a total of 20 victims that had injuries resulting from gunfire, including the 8 and 10-year-old who were killed yesterday. 15 of the injured are children between the ages of 6 and 15.
He says the children's injuries range from minor grazes to serious life-threatening wounds. 3 of the victims are adults in their 80s. Police say they recovered, quote, 3 shotgun shells along with approximately 116 rifle rounds at the scene. The FBI has identified the shooter as 23-year-old Robin Westman. Officials confirmed he was born Robert Westman and legally changed his name in 2020 after identifying as female. Online posts by the suspect showed firearms, ammunition, and notes describing depression and plans for an attack.
The shooter left behind hundreds of pages of writings that describe the shooter's plan, writings that describe the shooter's mental state, and more than anything, writings that describe the shooter's hate. Pure, indiscriminate hate.
Officials say the church's locked doors during Mass saved lives.
Annunciation Church had a practice that once Mass began, they locked the doors of the church. This incident occurred shortly after the Mass was beginning. So there's no question that the fact that the doors were locked likely saved additional lives.
O'Hara says that the shooter intended to barricade and did barricade the doors on the same side of the church where the shooting occurred. Officials say the gunman had attended the church and school in the past, and that his mother once worked at the parish. They confirm the shooter purchased the guns legally and had no criminal history except for a traffic ticket. On Thursday, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey urged state and federal bans on so-called assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Christina Corona, NTD News.
And the White House responding to the tragedy in Minnesota, and Press Secretary Leavitt defending the power of prayer while highlighting the administration's push on crime and American labor. NTD's Mari Otsu has more from the White House.
President Trump and the First Lady encouraged the entire nation to join all of us in praying for the victims and their families as they face unimaginable grief and loss.
The White House today responding to the Minnesota school shooting that took the lives of an 8 and a 10-year-old.
In a time of mourning like this, it's utterly disrespectful to deride the power of prayer in this country, and it's disrespectful to the millions of Americans of faith.
As Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is defending the power of prayer, the FBI is currently investigating the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. Press Secretary Leavitt tells NTD's White House reporter Iris Tao that the administration is focused on removing public safety threats from our communities.
Iris.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions on the shooting. What's the administration's message to some concerned parents across the country who might be now worried about their kids' safety in light of the latest incident?
We completely and totally understand the concerns of parents across the country. This tragedy it's heartbreaking. As a parent myself, there are no words to describe just the heartbreak that these families must be enduring.
And First Lady Melania on Wednesday called for preemptive intervention in identifying school shooters. Meanwhile, Press Secretary Leavitt is touting the lower D.C. crime numbers. As the White House is doubling down on its stance on crime, it is now bringing its attention to Chicago, criticizing local officials for ignoring the problem.
This is our message to Americans in Democrat-run cities nationwide. Decline is a choice. You don't have to live in constant fear of being robbed, raped, or murdered. Your leaders are lying to you, and they have been failing you for decades.
Leavitt says that for 13 years, Chicago has had the most murders of any U.S. city. And as Labor Day approaches on Monday, the White House is touting that nearly $10 trillion in investments is being brought into America.
For decades, the hardworking men and women of our country who built the greatest nation in world history were sold out by selfish, greedy, short-sighted globalists who put our country on a path to economic and cultural ruin. This national disgrace is over, and the dignity of American labor is being defended.
The White House says that since President Trump took office, the economy has added nearly 500,000 jobs to the workforce, and that the average taxpayer can expect a nearly $4,000 tax cut. Reporting from the White House, Mariotsu, NTD News.
The White House says a new CDC director to replace Dr. Susan Menares will be announced, quote, very soon. This while Menares is fighting her termination. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has more.
The president has the authority to fire those who are not aligned with his mission. A new replacement will be announced by either the president or the secretary very soon.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says that CDC Director Susan Menares was fired by the president because she didn't align with the president's mission to make America healthy again.
The secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't, so the president fired her, which he has every right to do.
The Department of Health and Human Services announced the removal of Dr. Menares on Wednesday. However, Menares is pushing back. One of her attorneys says, quote, Dr. Menares has neither resigned nor yet been fired. In a statement Wednesday evening, Menares' attorneys, Mark Lade and Abby Lowell, wrote, when CDC Director Susan Menares refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fired dedicated health experts, she chose protecting the public over serving a political agenda. For that, she has been targeted. Dr. Menares has neither resigned nor received notification from the White House that she has been fired, and as a person of integrity and devoted to science, she will not resign. Also, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been in Texas visiting with Governor Greg Abbott to help further the state's MAHA agenda. Kennedy and Abbott discussed initiatives for rural health care in Texas.
190 counties are categorized as rural in this state. In those more than 190 counties, we have more than 6 million Texans who have health care needs just like everybody else in the entire state of Texas.
Rural America is in crisis, and the rural hospitals are absolutely critical for them surviving these crises. These institutions are not just medical providers. They're, in most cases, they're the single largest employer in those areas.
Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook is suing the Trump administration. That's in an effort to overturn the president's attempt to fire her. She asked a federal court today to declare the president's move unprecedented and illegal. Trump said he was removing her from her role at the central bank due to an allegation of mortgage fraud. Cook asked the court in a lawsuit filed today to rule that Trump's attempt to remove her is unlawful and that she remains an active member of the Federal Reserve. Federal law permits the president to remove Federal Reserve Board members for cause. Cook argues that the fraud allegation isn't cause for removal where it hasn't been proven. Trump said in a social media post on Monday that he had sufficient cause to fire her, citing accusations of mortgage fraud. As President Trump mulls over whether to deploy the National Guard to Chicago, Homeland Security has asked a nearby military base for limited support. Meanwhile, a judge in Florida has approved the closure of alligator Alcatraz. NTD's Arlene Richards has the latest.
This whole story on crime is incredible that the Democrats wouldn't be with us.
As President Trump touts his success in deploying the National Guard to address crime in D.C., he's been hinting at sending more troops to Chicago. But Illinois Governor Pritzker has said no thank you. Now, the Department of Homeland Security has asked a naval base 35 miles outside of Chicago for help, which may be a clue of future law enforcement presence to come. Matt Mogul, a spokesperson for Naval Base Great Lakes, told CNN that the department asked for limited support in the form of facilities, infrastructure, and other logistical needs to support DHS operations. In the weeks after the administration deployed National Guard troops to D.C. streets, he's been calling for sending troops to other crime-ridden cities like Chicago, Baltimore, and New York. In light of the Illinois governor's objections, President Trump has been hedging on sending troops in without a request from Pritzker. Border czar Tom Homan says there's still a crime problem.
Chicago still has a crime problem. So President Trump, again, made a promise to American people, we'll make this country safe again. So Chicago has a crime problem. That's why President Trump's thinking about it.
Last week, some Chicago residents said they would welcome reinforcements.
It's no law and order. I mean, if you got the National Guard right there, are you going to rob somebody right there in front of the National Guards? No, you're not.
Details about the administration's plans for Chicago are still unclear. Over in Florida, the administration is battling losses over the operation of alligator Alcatraz. The immigration detention facility in the Florida Everglades is closing down after a federal judge late Wednesday denied requests to pause her order to wind down operations at the facility. Detainees had reported unsanitary conditions and being cut off from the legal system. The White House responded to the judge's decision on Thursday.
We know that what this administration is doing with respect to all policy, but also immigration policy, is above the books, and we're abiding by our nation's immigration laws. And we think it's despicable that an activist judge has inserted themselves in this migrant detention facility to the point where DHS is now having to relocate these illegal immigrants.
The judge has given them until late October to completely shut down the facility. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Russia strikes Kyiv in the deadliest bombardment since the Trump-Putin-Alaska summit. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez has more on the story.
Rescue operations continued throughout the day in Kyiv after Russian drones and missiles struck 33 locations in all of the 10 districts of the Ukrainian capital. At least 18 civilians, including 4 children, were killed and 44 others were wounded. The strikes hit exclusively civilian infrastructure, with damage reported at the European Union delegation headquarters and the British delegation offices in Kyiv.
This attack is one of the examples of Russian country is terrorist country. Destroyed civilians, killed civilians.
The president of the European Commission expressed outrage and highlighted that the peace talks with the Russian government have not deterred Vladimir Putin from his objectives in Ukraine.
Last night's attack struck in close proximity of the diplomatic mission, the representation of our union. 2 missiles hit in a distance of 50 meters of the delegation within 20 seconds. And this is another grim reminder of what is at stake.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte stressed that the U.S. and its allies should not be naive about what the Russian government is capable and will do to reach a settlement to the war in Ukraine that is to Vladimir Putin's advantage.
And now we are working on the security guarantees. President Trump is trying to get Zelensky and Putin together at the table. But I think last night is evidence, again, that Russia is capable of a lot, is willing to do whatever they think is necessary to bring the war into a situation of their advantage, but they will not be successful because we will keep supporting Ukraine and we will do everything to end this war under Trump's leadership.
The Ukrainian government unveiled this week a new domestically produced long-range missile dubbed the Flamingo. The missile has a range of 3,000 kilometers and can deliver twice the payload of the powerful Tomahawk missile. The Flamingo missile could be a game changer in war and in peacetime for Ukraine. President Zelensky expects the country to be producing more than 200 of these missiles per month by the end of the year. And since it's domestically produced, it has no Western limitations to its use and can be used to hit Moscow and even beyond, even the Russian fleet in the Barents Sea. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
3 European countries have initiated a process at the United Nations that could impose crippling sanctions against Iran. They made the decision after accusing Iran of not cooperating with inspections of their nuclear facilities. NTD's Jason Perry has the details.
After the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, many have been wondering what's left of Iran's nuclear facilities. President Trump previously said Iran's nuclear facilities were, quote, totally obliterated after the U.S. sent B-2 bombers to strike Iran's underground nuclear sites. And afterwards, Iran's president ordered the country not to cooperate with the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, which is the UN's nuclear watchdog. However, on Wednesday, IAEA inspectors were in Iran and watched a fuel replacement at one of Iran's nuclear reactors.
Today, inspectors are back in Iran. This is important. When the attacks began and in the aftermath of that, there were many voices in Iran advocating the end of every cooperation, any cooperation with the agency.
The head of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, told the Associated Press that regaining access to Iran's nuclear facilities is still a work in progress. On Thursday, 3 European countries, also known as E3, which include Germany, France, and the United Kingdom, initiated a process at the United Nations that could put pressure on Iran to cooperate with nuclear inspectors. That process is called snapback, which is a so-called veto-proof mechanism that was put into the nuclear agreement with Iran from 2015. Since then, Iran has avoided these UN sanctions. And if snapback is enabled, all UN countries would be obligated to apply sanctions on Iran. Meanwhile, Russia and China called for extending sanctions relief to Iran for 6 months. Russia's ambassador to the UN said the so-called snapback mechanism was illegal because it was not implemented in good faith. And during a phone call on Iran state-run media, an Iranian official threatened to end all cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog.
We have told them if this happens, the pathway we have opened with the International Atomic Energy Agency will be completely affected and will likely be stopped. If they opt for snapback, it makes no sense for Iran to continue working with them.
Iran's currency fell to record lows on Thursday as concerns grew over possible reimposed sanctions on the country's nuclear program. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Coming up, new developments in the Chinese Communist Party's hacking campaign to spy on Americans' phone calls and text messages. Plus, the Pentagon is now auditing Microsoft for employing China-based engineers to work on U.S. military projects. Jack Bradley reports after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The FBI says a Chinese regime-linked hacking campaign has hit more than 200 American firms across 80 countries. And the Defense Department is now investigating Microsoft for hiring China-based coders for U.S. military projects. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more.
Beijing's indiscriminate targeting of private communications demands our stronger collaboration with partners to identify and counter this activity at the earliest stages.
23 defense and intelligence agencies from the U.S. and around the world are laying out the Chinese Communist Party's playbook in hacking telecommunications companies. Chinese state-sponsored hackers spied on calls and text messages of millions of Americans since at least 2019. They also targeted several government officials like President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. This hacking campaign is widely known as Salt Typhoon. The FBI now says that the hackers breached over 80 countries.
These actors conducted a significant cyber espionage campaign, breaching global telecommunications privacy and security norms.
In another development, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the Pentagon is now investigating Microsoft after learning that the company was using coders in China to provide tech support to the U.S. military. It was a program that was called Digital Escorts. Hegseth called this a breach of trust and a threat to the U.S. military's cybersecurity, which has been going on for nearly a decade.
Did they put anything in the code that we didn't know about? We're going to find out. Additionally, all Department of Defense software vendors will identify and terminate any Chinese involvement in DoD systems. It blows my mind that I'm even saying these things. It's such common sense that we ever allowed it to happen.
Microsoft is a major contractor of the U.S. government, and they said last month that they'd stop employing China-based workers for U.S. military projects. And in another development, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill on Wednesday that bans nationals from certain countries from buying land in Texas. The new law applies to people and companies from countries that the federal government deems a national security threat, like China and Iran.
SB 17 is the strongest law in the United States to prohibit foreign adversaries from buying land in our great state.
Abbott signed 2 more bills targeting foreign adversaries, one criminalizing transnational repression or intimidation, and another prohibiting sister city agreements with those countries. Other states and the federal government are working to take similar action on the land purchase ban. Their concern is that the Chinese Communist Party is directing its companies to purchase farmland to gain control of the U.S. domestic food supply and set up shop for espionage near sensitive military sites.
The Chinese owning of farmland in our country is a massive national security issue, and for the media, you can see the yellow is where all of the farms have been purchased over the last number of years, and the red is around all of the military bases.
And this issue has been a concern for years, and it's bipartisan. Last year, the Biden administration, by executive action, stopped a large Chinese land purchase near a U.S. military base. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Vice President J.D. Vance made a stop in La Crosse, Wisconsin today to promote the administration's Big Beautiful Bill. During the visit, he spoke about the importance of keeping factories in America and how the new law will help America's working families. NTD's David Zhang tells us more.
We believe that if you spend an extra hour at work, the government ought to keep its hands the hell out of your pocket. Is that right?
Vice President J.D. Vance is pitching President Donald Trump's sweeping new law during a visit to a steel factory in Swing State, Wisconsin, a preview of the midterm message that Republicans are expected to campaign on next year. Vance also touted several ways he believes the administration has helped working families in the state of Wisconsin. He says the new tariffs will help keep industry in America.
We know about 5%, about 1 in 20 Wisconsin workers rely on tips to bring home the bacon for themselves and their families. When we cut taxes on tips, and Wisconsin families are going to be the beneficiaries.
Both houses passed the One Big Beautiful Bill by a very thin margin, and President Trump signed it into law on 4th of July this year. It's now taking on a more pragmatic name called Working Families Tax Cuts.
I'm not going to use the term great, big, beautiful. That was good for getting it approved, but it's not good for explaining to people what it's all about. It's a massive tax cut for the middle class.
Democrats call the legislation One Big Beautiful Bill for billionaires and claim that it will harm local residents.
That big, beautiful bill is just for the rich.
It's going to hurt not us as much as the poor working people, the people that are making minimum wage.
As the deficit goes up, they can make cuts to Medicare.
Vance emphasized that the new bill seeks to cut fraud and waste in health care benefits by blocking illegal immigrants from receiving them.
But what we are also doing in order to preserve the benefits that you paid into for your entire lives is making sure those benefits only go to our fellow American citizens and not to people who ought to go back to their home country because they're here in this country illegally. It's very simple. And think about this. Think about the math, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot have these health care benefits if you allow tens of millions of people into this country who have no legal right to be here and give them those benefits.
Many local residents do believe that bringing jobs back to America will help boost the local economy.
What the working families tax cuts did is very simple, ladies and gentlemen. It let you keep more money in your pocket. It rewarded you for building a business or working at a business right here in the United States of America. It makes it easy for you to take home more of your hard-earned pay, and it makes it easier. If you're an American manufacturer or an American business, it makes it easier for you to build your facility or expand your facility right here in the United States of America.
Well, LaCroix sparkling water is one of the famous American brands that originated right here in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I drink one of these every day with lunch, and no matter what your taste is for one big beautiful bill or working families tax cut, if you are for keeping jobs here in America, in towns like this, or keeping my job as a reporter, I think that's something we can all toast to. Reporting from La Crosse, Wisconsin, David Zhang, NTD News.
Coming up, a film celebrating a nationwide spiritual awakening debuts at one of America's most prestigious institutions. Sam Wong hears from the cast and crew of the new documentary, The Revival Generation, at the Kennedy Center. And NTD's vocal competition is coming to New York City's Kaufman Music Center this weekend. Renowned mezzo-soprano and 9-time Grammy nominee Frederica von Stade will lead a masterclass before the finale. Hear her story in vocal arts and advice for the contestants after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A spiritual awakening among the nation's youth celebrated at one of America's most prestigious institutions. A documentary titled The Revival Generation premiered at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. last night. The film follows a movement that has led to the baptism of more than 100,000 college students. NTD's Sam Wong has the details.
The red carpet debut of The Revival Generation took place Wednesday night at Washington, D.C.'s Kennedy Center. The documentary follows a nationwide movement of spiritual awakening among America's youth.
It's going to talk about redemption and talk about new opportunities, renewal, and all of those things that America believes in.
My sons are college age, and so they've been very aware of this movement across the country, and I think this is going to just add fuel to the fire and get them more excited.
People hate on college students, Gen Z, so much, saying there's no hope for Gen Z.
Produced by the Christian Broadcasting Network, The Revival Generation explores the story of Tanya Pruitt, a mother who helped spark a trend of prayer and mass baptisms at college campuses nationwide. Director Laura Hand witnessed the movement firsthand and felt the urge to tell the story.
I think Gen Z has got to a place of such depression and anxiety and isolation and suicidal ideation. It's gotten so bad that they are desperate for a change. And I think that faith is kind of coming in and answering a lot of the questions that they've been asking.
Dr. Elvita King is a niece of civil rights icon Martin Luther King Jr. To her, the return to church by today's youth is a sign of a divine providence.
I believe that God knows the heart of the young people, and if He will touch the hearts of the young, then a message can grow and move, and that is exactly what we're seeing now.
Under the leadership of the Trump administration, the Kennedy Center has expanded its programming to include faith-based films and performances. Dr. Ben Carson, former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, says faith in the divine goes back to the founding principles of our nation.
Our founding document says that our rights come from our Creator. The only thing that's really saving us is the fact that we're still able to talk to each other and work together. We need to strengthen that rather than allowing the Marxist forces to divide us.
Reporting from Washington, D.C., Sam Wong, NTD News.
From Friday to Sunday, NTD will host the 10th International Chinese Vocal Competition at New York City's Kaufman Music Center. On Sunday, renowned mezzo-soprano Frederica von Stade, a two-time Grand Prix du Disque winner and 9-time Grammy nominee, will lead a masterclass before the finale. She joins NTD's Iris Tao to share her lifelong journey in vocal arts and advice for the competitors' singers.
Flicka, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So first of all, your portrayals of Mozart, as well as, for example, Rossini and French repertoire, has inspired a lot of people, and that's really giving you a lot of credit and also praises for your performances. What's the advice and for young artists, and as well as what does bel canto really mean to you?
I loved singing bel canto because it feels good with the voice, but it's really takes a long time to learn because it's so subtle. It's really just means pretty singing. And Rossini and Bellini is the most famous for it. You think of Callas singing Norma. And I just loved, I worked with some marvelous, marvelous teachers. Their moms, their dads, they become everything to this young person who is dealing with an instrument that is tiny, that you can't see, that's somewhere in there, and trying to imagine how it works.
And here at NTD, the vocal competition really values clarity, purity, as well as truthful saying, some of the values that you embodied throughout your own journey and career. What's the one thing that you would tell young singers as they prepare for this competition?
The one thing is mean what you say. In other words, when you're singing a song or an aria, there's always a story behind it. It's what enables us to take people to another region of human existence through the voice. What makes people, when they hear Pavarotti or Mirella Freni or Joyce DiDonato, it's the story that counts. It takes the pressure off yourself, and it's easy to concentrate on. You just have to keep doing it.
I was actually hosting the vocal competition last year, and I witnessed from the backstage like how intense it could be actually as they were going to go up to the stage. Yes. But once they're on the stage, they're perfect.
No, yeah. Once you get there, you're okay. The opera house is so loving. From the minute you sort of come through the door, it's, hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Come on in, settle down, da-da-da. You know, I wish people knew how much fun rehearsing is, being silly and trying to do your best at the same time, you know. And we always have that cushion of gorgeous music around us. So no matter how far afield we go, we're protected by the music.
The power of music.
The power of music, yes.
What's your advice for the current generation of people who are trying to maintain those traditions, not only when it comes to arts and saying, but really traditional culture and values? How do we make sure that they don't get lost?
I think the best way is just to go and live in a country, if it's at all possible, and if for these young singers, it's very possible. And the next bit of advice is going to seem very trite and very negative, but I would make a plan to put your phone away or your social media for most of your day. Concentrate it in the morning and maybe in the afternoon, and then put it away. It's not just it's destroying communication. And communication is everything. And we as singers, that's what we do. I've seen what it's done to all the kids in our program who come in at 9 and they're willing and happy and they have concentration, and then they get their first phone at 11 or 12, and all of a sudden their whole attitude changes. And I think then you lose that marvelous tradition of communication, of trying to choose your words, of saying what you really mean and what you feel in a way that is comfortable for the person you're speaking to. All of that is a natural process, but it can be an artistic process as well.
Having seen these challenges when it comes to the younger generation in the current society, what gives you hope still about a future generation of young singers? What makes you hopeful still about
I think it's
future?
a very exciting time for opera and singing because there's such a lack of ear to throat communication in our world today. Everything is through a microphone or it's amplified, and I think it's more important than ever.
And Frederica, as you're looking forward to helping these young artists and at this NTD competition, what excites you the most about this journey? What do you look forward to really teaching them and helping them learn?
I entered many competitions at the beginning of my career, and out of maybe 12, I got a place in one, and I had a career. So that's one message I want to give to them. Winning this is not the beginning or the end of your career. It's a step. And bravo for taking the step, because it takes courage to put yourself out there to be judged. I've had very difficult and hard times to live through in my career. But though at this point, at 80, they're all forgotten. All I remember are the wonderful people I met, the exquisite voices I heard, the incredible conductors, the incredible staffs of everybody around. I just want them, I want to welcome them to the business because basically they're already there.
Well, I'm sure there's been a lot of passion as well as rewarding moments in your journey because you certainly don't look like 80.
Thank you.
Frederica, thank you so much for your words of encouragement and wisdom to our audience, to our participants, and thank you so much for extraordinary artistry and heart. Appreciate you being here.
I appreciate being here, and thank you very much, Iris, really. It's been lovely to look at this beautiful face, too. Thank you.
Coming up in college football, it's a Big Ten versus Big 12 showdown tonight in Kansas City. Dave Martin joins us with the details. And it's been 20 years since Hurricane Katrina devastated businesses across the state of Louisiana. NTD speaks with the owner of one family business who survived more than just the natural disaster. David Lamb has more on why the family and other locals still call New Orleans home when we come back. And now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, plenty going on right now, but let's start with some breaking news from the NFL as the Dallas Cowboys have reportedly traded All-Pro linebacker Micah Parsons to Green Bay. What are the details here?
Yeah, ESPN is reporting the Packers are trading defensive tackle Kenny Clark plus 2 future first-round picks in exchange for Parsons. Parsons then will reportedly sign a 4-year deal worth $188 million. $136 million of that is guaranteed. That is the biggest contract ever for a non-quarterback player in NFL history there. Now, Parsons released a statement on social media today saying in part, quote, "I never wanted this chapter to end, but not everything was in my control. My heart has always been here, and it still is. Through it all, I never made any demands. I never asked for anything more than fairness." He then goes on to thank Cowboy Nations. Now, Parsons, arguably the best edge rusher in the league. He's made 4 Pro Bowls in his 4 seasons, twice been named an All-Pro. The relationship between him and the Cowboys, though, clearly seemed to sour, at least looked like it was sour from afar when he asked for a trade request earlier this month. So now he joins the Packers. So, Tip, I've got some friends who are Cowboys fans. Probably not thrilled to see this news. It's hard to say your team got better when they traded the best defensive player in the league away. So tough time for them for sure. But for the Packers, this certainly makes them look like Super Bowl contenders here. I'm not calling it yet, though. All right, let me think about it.
So we'll have to circle back tomorrow so your friends can react to you.
Let it marinate for a little bit.
Well, shifting gears to the U.S. Open, the second round continued today. Where do things stand now on both sides of the draw?
Yeah, looking at the men's side first here, number one ranked Jannik Sinner won in straight sets this afternoon to advance to the third round. Now he's had no problem in either of his two matches thus far, as I would expect. Last night, second ranked Carlos Alcaraz advanced as well with a straight sets win. Also, Americans Taylor Fritz and Ben Shelton won their second round matches as well. In fact, the only top 10 player on the men's side who's out is fifth ranked Jack Draper, but he had to forfeit his match today due to an arm injury. Now, on the women's side, second ranked Iga Swiatek advanced to the third round this afternoon with a 3-set win. This marks the 23rd straight Grand Slam event that she's advanced to at least the third round of. That's the longest streak right now on the women's side. Last night, Aryna Sabalenka won her match in 2 sets. Tonight, we've got second round Coco Gauff playing her second round match starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So just in a few minutes here, Coco Gauff will be trying to play. So not too any upsets really at all on the men's side. Only had one a couple days ago.
Well, elsewhere at the U.S. Open, former number one ranked player Daniil Medvedev was fined more than $40,000 for his outburst Sunday night.
Yeah, Medvedev was clearly not happy when his opponent this Sunday night, Benjamin Bonzi, was awarded another first serve on match point because a photographer walked onto the court. Now, Bonzi's first serve hit the net. It's still not exactly clear when the photographer actually came onto the court, but the umpire awarded him another first serve, though Medvedev objected, argued with the umpire, then he got it to the crowd too. It ended up being a 6-minute delay because in tennis, they don't really start hitting the ball if the crowd is, jeering or cheering or booing or whatever. So anyway, it seemed to actually wake up Medvedev, though. He ended up saving match point 6 minutes later when the match finally resumed. Went on to win the third set, won the fourth set 6-love, but then lost the fifth set and the match. So Medvedev was fined $30,000 for unsportsmanlike conduct. And then after he lost, he smashed his racket, which is another $12,500 fine. But fortunately, he made $110,000 in prize money, so he still got a positive result out of all that.
And how much is a racket?
Well, hopefully less than $12,500. That is quite a fine there for breaking your racket.
Shifting gears away from tennis to college football, there are a number of Thursday night games on tonight. What matchups stand out to you?
Yeah, a number of teams in action, I should say. 17 games on tonight. Only one top 25 team in action plays. That's 25th ranked Boise State playing at South Florida. Now there's another number of power conference teams as well. Rutgers faces Ohio. We've got Miami of Ohio plays at Wisconsin. Buffalo plays at Minnesota. I think the best matchup though is a Big 10, Big 12 showdown. Nebraska faces Cincinnati. This is going to be played in Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, home of the Chiefs. Now the Huskers went 7-6 last year in Matt Rule's second season, won the Pinstripe Bowl. Cincinnati went 5-7 in their second year in the Big 12. The game starts at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And Tiff, even though it's played in Kansas City, this is actually a home game for Cincinnati, 600 miles from their campus. It's only 200 miles from Nebraska's campus. I'm guessing the Chiefs paid them a lot of money to come there and play their game there. That's my guess anyway. So
I know you'll be watching. Right?
I will be watching for sure.
Well, Dave, as always, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Tiff.
And this week marks the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, one of the costliest natural disasters in U.S. history. A New Orleans business owner describes her recovery and resilience after her business was devastated in 2005. NTD's David Lamb reports.
It's been 20 years since Hurricane Katrina devastated the U.S., causing around $100 billion in damage. This is Joanne Fisher, born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. She currently runs the family business Fisher's Jewelry, which began in 1962. This store was hit with flooding as well as looting in the aftermath.
Well, I was still out of town. I was not here, but when I did find out that it had happened, it was just unbelievable that such a thing could happen, because all our gates that we have wrought iron gates.
This is what it looks like today After renovations and rebuilding after Hurricane Katrina hit in August 2005, Fisher said she wasn't about to leave in the aftermath.
It's home. It's home. I wouldn't want to be any other place. So many people in New Orleans, you can talk about, oh, you know so-and-so. Well, yeah, a lot of people know each other here.
For communities that have faced floods, fires, and other tragedies, Fisher says it's about trying to move forward.
Well, you just have to keep on going and keep one day behind the other. Every day is, one day you get up and next day you get up again. And thank God for each day that you have.
She calls this place home and plans to pass the business on to her daughter and granddaughter. Fisher says she has faith that the family business will continue. In New Orleans, Louisiana, David Lamb, NTD News.
And that's all for today's news. For on-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.